It's the evening of a long day. Sad as it is, I have Parkinson's. It's not an easy thing for me to summon the energy, willpower, attention, and focus to properly answer Rania and Vijay. I don't get many viewers, if any. I don't know if they or anyone else will watch it, which is a burden to the obligation of an intellectual to answer, which I do feel when the cause is just and the information necessary. I will say that Rania and Vijay are both international inspirations for the stands that they take. They're professionals and they're doing a remarkable job. I admire their insights, their receptivity to one another, their ability to respond to one another intelligently and constructively to bring the full um, magnitude of their insights forward so that those of us with less aptitude and learning on the matters and experience in these issues can find a resource to study and learn by. And although all over the world people are complaining about the media and see what the media is doing, confusing of people, misleading of people, lying to people as an albatross of being hoodwinked by those in power. Forcing independent media to live without hope, struggling as I struggle in this video to make an impact out of concern for our peers. I think they do a remarkable job under those circumstances, so I'm certainly commending them. But my criticism and what draws me to make my criticism is going to be rather harsh. And it pertains specifically to what I have testified to and reported and the refusal to own up. There is a sly syndicate and call to disparagement of me personally behind it. Now, I'll cut to the chase and make perfectly clear to you what I mean by this. One of the things I've testified to was back in the 70s that I was the runt of the litter from Bush's ship in the Navy. My father was on the CVL 30, and he was a human rights author in the 40s, an advocate for public schools, minorities, and marginalized persons, a humanist who wrote the book Humanizing the School. This is what I knew of him. Putting aside various theories that he was in the CIA and so on. He knew Eisenhower. What I knew of him was his public reputation. And I was attacked and tortured. And I was taken to a place called King's Estate and gassed while getting inundated with letters from a Zionist in New Jersey, in fact, from Woods Hole, where Z Magazine originates. Letters originating also in Israel, on a kibbutz there. And the story that I was used as a narrative piece for by torturing me, by making me deaf, by ultimately putting me up as an object of derision for the University of Washington to laugh at when I got Parkinson's after they castrated me chemically for no reason, just as an arrogant medical violent act from police brutality operating out of the Green Party in Seattle, Washington. That's all the whole reasoning of it, in other words, is locked into the sort of narrative digest that people in the alternative press adopt for themselves. They saw me as a laughing stock, as a pariah. They didn't say, Jimmy is deaf. He's confused. He's telling an important testimony of story. Let me show you how important it is. I was gassed in a place called King's Estate. Claude Lanzmann teaches that the Nazis called the ramp to the gas chambers Himmelschweg. Now, the letters discuss why they killed Martin Luther King. And she was a contemporary and a disciple of Claude Lanzmann, socially connected to him. So she knew, the person who wrote the letters knew when they gassed me in King's Estate, they were talking about Martin Luther King's heavenly estate, Himmelschweg. So they were using me in a concentration camp special education scenario, an experiment in the East End district of Pittsburgh. This is very important. City of Pittsburgh lied through the teeth about it to cover. Vince Irini was covering for John Schulman and Martin Sheen's museum theft ring. From these were people working with Donald Trump, stealing from our museums. And they drove me into homelessness for 2 years. And even that didn't move Rania and Vijay. Why? The reason is because they're part and parcel. And before Gaza, I heard this a lot in the city of Pittsburgh. I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to believe the Zionists are that sick, that they are that crazy, that they are capable of something that evil. I do not want to believe. And I testified that they used me for not one, but 2 Holocaust illustration special experiments. The other one was clocked to the AIDS epidemic on Mount Desert Island. I put out reams of evidence. Now, the attorneys for Yoko Ono were getting in touch with me when I was at Falk Medical Library in 1984, when my father died. Now, my father was a pariah to people like BJ and Radio. He was a patriarch. Ooh, a white patriarch. And his son, they didn't say, poor Jimmy is deaf. They said, Jimmy is thirsty. Ha 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 ha. And they had an attorney named Amanda Harcourt, and she wrote to me, and she said it must be the season of truculent machines. And she was talking about having lunch with Joni Mitchell, which she called a big name drop. And I didn't care about Joni Mitchell. I'd interviewed Peter Gabriel, and I liked King Crimson. That's all. If I had been a calculating individual, I wasn't. I was a medical library clerk. I was lucky to have a job because I was deaf and very confused from the battery I took. Like they'd implanted a nerve agent. Even when these people found out that an Attica State prison psychiatrist had implanted a nerve agent in a child when he was 11 years old through trauma, did they care? They didn't care. And Rania and Vijay can't reflect on the fact that they went along with all this stuff. They said, we don't want to believe that. Okay? So they're stuck as accomplices in what they've created, which is Gaza is the rotten birth child of their laughingstock idea about me. That's the tragedy of these 2 people. Well, if I had been this calculating person, when I heard Season of Truculent Machines, I would have said, oh, name drop Joni Mitchell. They're giving me a hint. Season of Glass, the Croquet Gusto. I mean, Yoko Ono is playing Peep on this kid from Pittsburgh Never mind that she was in on the whole thing from the beginning. That contradicts Rania and Vijay too much. Let the babies have their poison bottle. Let them pretend that Yoko Ono was discovering this stuff. Okay, and if I had been a calculating sort, I would have said, oh, Yoko Ono is in on this. I can give Mad the Hardcore a letter to Bob Dylan needs. But that wasn't what I was trying to do. I wasn't willing to entertain a thought like that. I was wearing blinders about that sort of thing. I simply thought I'd interviewed Peter Gabriel and I'd made clear to Robert Fripp that he was an inspiration in my own writing. Now, they were negating my talents. They were, oh, he's an imitator. They were on and on and on and on. But that came out later. At this point, they were insinuating me, like Roger Waters, come closer so I can spit on you. Okay, come during the come closer stages, come closer, child. And I kept my distance. I went along with hardcore. I said, I don't want to bother these men. They're very important figures in the arts. I want to learn from them. I want to validate my existence by um, asking for their understanding about my need for personal development, fulfillment. I made the mistake of saying, tell me, I didn't want to seem like a coward. They made it out that I was trying to get over and get published and exploit them. That's not true. I just didn't want to seem like a coward. I was showing them things like chasing an echo that I didn't want to a lot of people to read, because I wasn't comfortable with it, that it was perfect. I wasn't comfortable with it. There were some awkward points. But I said, if you want to tell me about a publisher, it was just because I didn't want to feel like a coward. In other words, if you want to let other people read this, I wasn't out to make $1 million in gold. I mean, that's all poisonous rhetoric about the situation that was used to lie about me. But I had enough, demons going on with respect to what do I do if they don't like me. I hope that this doesn't turn into something like tragic for me. I had no idea the magnitude of the sinister cruelty that was in store. And the magnitude of the sinister cruelty that was in store came out when they wrote an alibi for these Holocaust experiments. I mean, the Rolling Stones went down, jumped pee and played at Tel Aviv to announce Gaza's demolition. And Rania and Vijay seemed to me the type of people who would scratch Mick Jagger's back about that because we don't like little Jimmy. His father was a patriarch of the University of Pittsburgh. He was play acting that he wasn't a racist. He was part of the imperial system. And we are dealing with super imperialism and what they call imperialism on steroids. He says there's no vision. VJ crows, there's no vision. Where's the vision? What's the vision? Public schools was my father's vision. He wrote books about human rights and civil rights. So when I see the schools being blown up, I take it very, very personally against Netanyahu's government. When I see the children being killed, I take that very, very personally because I remember as a child thinking I wouldn't want to live this life again. I was too very brutally frightened and tormented and hiding even in the top shelf of a closet. And they were saying, Pittsburgh was saying, don't say like Anne Frank. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Rania and Vijay won't validate that. That's not your cultural signification. Your culturally appropriating the idea that hiding in a towel closet for trauma and fear as an 11, 12-year-old who's been kidnapped and tortured and gassed, that's not like Anne Frank. That's cultural appropriation. So you better apologize to Yoko Ono when you say those Those patriarch words that you think make you special. You're not special.